The best coaches in the game, we really ain't playing. We regroup up in the Slack chat where the coaches debrief. We be piecing these puzzles, occupy the chunk of the pie. Ain't no lie when we hit the block, helmets casket is got. You be seeing helmet after helmet, helmet after helmet. First place, second place, fifth place, eighth place, 12th place, 15, 16, 20. So many helmets, you got blurred vision, we got too many. Tick your tech. Oh man, shit. They got us fucked up. Army, regroup. We pledge always to have that edge. We don't fire warning shots. Competition just drop. We locked and loaded before lock. Whatever the time, yeah. Do you even correlate?
Being the best requires a willingness to outwork your competition. There's always someone smarter, faster, sharper, more naturally gifted to come around.
Welcome. This is FantasyFling with the DFS Army doing a Millie Maker review, week 14 tournament strategy recap, doing a little bit of mass multi-entry study as well with top DFS pros. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. All right, I'm going to start out with my article that's over at dfsarmy.com. This is something I write every week. The Millie Maker review, kind of like to dissect the lineup from several different angles. First off, just looking at the stacks that took it down. And this was one of those ones where I kind of kicked myself because I was pretty much into the Lamar stacks. I felt like this was a game that could hit the over because when Los Angeles has Stafford and they have Kyron Williams and they have Puka Nacua and they have Cooper Kupp, they can score and they can push the pace. And that's exactly what they did. They forced Baltimore to throw and ended up being an overtime thriller. The Baltimore won the game. But what we saw was the ceiling Lamar that we love to see. So the stack that took it down was Lamar and Odell Beckham and Isaiah Likely. And really, Zay Flowers had a good day too. Odell Beckham slightly out. Actually, Zay Flowers slightly outscored Odell Beckham, but Odell Beckham was only 3,800. So absolutely smashed. And then secondary stack, and this is something we're going to see kind of a constant between a lot of the DFS pros, was this secondary stack of Drake London and Rachaad White. Really went off. It was Drake London was the value play. Rachaad White is just a volume guy. There's really no one else in that offense. So he gets rushing volume. He gets receiving volume. So, total stacking points, we had 130 across, two stacks, one game stack and, one team stack, which is the primary stack with Lamar. And then about 51%. So, going right into ownership, this is obviously 104% is on the lower end. So even though there was, what I loved about this lineup is even though there was some chalky spots, Joe Mixon, Deebo Samuel, Drake London, chalk here, the overall stack with Lamar and Beckham and Isaiah Likely was contrarian. And then you also had Rachaad White, who was 4% owned. You had Austin Eckler, who was 5% owned, and Vikings D. So just goes to show you can have some lineups that are a lot of chalk in certain spots as long as they get different, as long as there's 3 to 4 pivots in, something like the Millie Maker. Sometimes it's only even 2 pivots, but most weeks it's going to be about 3 to 4 pivots in the Millie Maker. And that's exactly what happened. So Lamar was obviously the top leverage play, top scoring QB, 3% owned. So, top leverage play on the slate. We had Rachaad White as well, as I just mentioned. And then Odell Beckham, 7%. He was popping in DFS Army's domination station. So shout out to DSUS, because whenever a player is being pushed, it almost always is for a good reason, because that player is in a great spot and ends up having a good day. So that was the case with Odell Beckham. But what's great about that is, sure, I can say that, and some people watching, you're not a DFS Army subscriber, you would be like, well, most optimizers are going to do that. So, they're going to be highly owned. Well, he was only 7% owned. So only 7% of the field was on him. In this case, it was a rare contrarian play, and that's what the domination station pumps out week after week. And then Austin Eckler, we actually loved the fact that they said they were going to ride the hot hand because let's be honest, it's Josh Kelly and Isaiah Spiller. Like these guys, I don't know that they've ever had the hot hand. So we thought it might give Austin Eckler a kick in the butt, and it did. And he got 21 points. And it being besides being in a negative game script and the Broncos defense swarming and creating turnovers the whole game, Austin Eckler was still able to produce 21 points. And then the Vikings D, I always say this, and, sometimes it doesn't always ring true. Sometimes the chalk defense will smash. But when you see a defense that's going to be 30% owned, 40% owned, more times than not, it is positive expected value to fade that defense and play a more contrarian defense. So what we had here was the Cleveland Browns. I believe they were like 20, 30% owned in this contest. And they were outscored by the Vikings D. There was 8 more points, and was $100 less and only 5% ownership. So that is why you typically want to fade chalk defenses. At the very least, minimize your exposure to a certain degree. So if they're going to be 20% on, maybe you get 15%, maybe you get 10%, but don't let the optimizer, go all the way up to 40, 50%, specifically when it's a chalk defenses, because more times than not, it's just best to fade that. And then pricing and value, just one thing that stands out here real quick. And, we talk about this a lot. It is very difficult for a player who's 8,500, 9,000, 9,200, like Christian McCaffrey, to hit 4x their value to win a large field GPP. That's why Christian McCaffrey, for example, is a really good guy to have in cash. Even in a great spot where he smashed 150 yards rushing, he didn't get there for a large field GPP because Jordan Mason got a carry and a goal line carry and got a touchdown. Deebo Samuel got a goal line carry and got a touchdown. So you needed Christian McCaffrey to get like 2 touchdowns. He needed him to get both of those carries, and he would have got there. But it's very difficult for a player to have that type of 4x to keep pace with a tournament winning value for the entire lineup when they're 9,200. So here, the highest owned player was Lamar Jackson, or highest price rather, at 7,700. And, just a really good core with Lamar, Rachaad White, Joe Mixon, Deebo, Austin Eckler, even Drake London. Like the pricing of these guys is really good, and they had the ceiling. Drake London ended up being the highest value of the slate, 7x. That's exactly what you need. And, that's something I missed on. I wrote up on my cheat sheet. I didn't think he quite had the ceiling, at least with Desmond Ridder at quarterback, to really score 30 plus points in this spot. Well, it proved me wrong. 7x the salary, absolutely smashed. So good on him. And then a ceiling, we had 230 points. It'd have been the highest score since week 10. That's how low scoring it's been. And that brings the average to 240 points on the season. So let's go ahead and jump right into the winner. Is kind of just MME strategy. I want to take a look at that real quick. Obviously, we just went over this entire lineup, but let's kind of see what the exposures were real quick. So, at quarterback, if I can get there, geez, Lamar Jackson and Russell Wilson and Brock Purdy. So 2 out of the 3, you had some of the highest scores, right? So it wasn't just a one-off lineup where you got Lamar. Really there was only 4 quarterbacks that he had double-digit exposure to, and, nailed 3 out of them. So Lamar Jackson, Brock Purdy, and Justin Fields. And by the way, Russell Wilson threw 2 touchdowns and had Jerry Jeudy just not be able to drag his foot. So really should have had 3 touchdowns, and, he would have been 4 for 4 on picking good quarterbacks. So really tight pool here as far as double-digit exposures. Pretty much nailed that. And then at running back, Javonte, he had 18 points. So good day from Javonte at 5,800. Jerick McKinnon, I liked that play. I made sure to get both McKinnon and Clyde Edwards-Helaire just based on their price. If that game really hit the over, I thought, one of these guys is going to be in the nuts for sure. And then Mixon had a, pretty good day. Bijan, Chuba Hubbard. This is basically a lot of my running back mix. But also what killed me and what he did differently was faded Zach Moss. So almost a full fade and just under on Christian McCaffrey. So sometimes that is what it takes, being under the field on the chalk that doesn't smash. Odell Beckham. So obviously with a good amount of Lamar, had a decent amount of Odell Beckham. And then, 31% Beckham. So, only 16% Lamar. So I had Beckham outside of Lamar lineups as well. So he was a really good play. I thought this was a really sharp play because a lot of the field was on Jonathan Mingo. And there was another guy. It was 3,000. I can't think of it at the moment. But just kind of, just going really in on Odell Beckham. Well, more of the field was on Mingo. I thought that was pretty sharp here. Cortland Sutton, obviously, the touchdowns, the free catches just been on. And then Debo and Ayuk, and that's really what made it was Debo right here. And then Drake London being over on Drake London was over just a little bit on Zay Flowers. And then, kind of surprisingly, under on DJ Moore and Rashee Rice, which not ideal, right? And also under on Njoku. But in fact, let's go back to his lineup here. So first place, I'm guessing second lineup is going to be nowhere near that. Yeah, 300 place. And then, 2,900. So, but hey, man, only takes one lineup. So good on him. Now, I can get to Mock Lovin in a second, but one of the guys I want to go to is Hishbu. Now, this guy is a DFS pro. He's a multi-time millionaire maker winner, and actually, he won the expensive millie on this slate. So, wanted to definitely take a look at Hishbu's strategy for the slate. So, had a Brock Purdy triple stack with Ayuk and Debo and George Kittle, and honestly, didn't do bad, right? I mean, we're talking 52nd place. Ayuk didn't get there, but Kittle, that's pretty good for a tight end. Although, almost 6K. So if this lineup had Ayuk and Debo and Ingram, well, it had Ingram, but Njoku. Now we're talking about this lineup like probably winning it. So pretty good. QB +3, double tight end. QB +2, the running back there. Ritter, London, Pitts, Christian McCaffrey, and the flex, Purdy, Ayuk, Debo, Kittle again. So this one had Njoku. So a lot of what you needed, but didn't have the running backs. You needed kind of 25 plus, and Kyron continues to produce even in tough matchups. 17 is pretty dang good. Oh, and it had Rashad Bateman, and that's really what crushed the lineup. So Hishbu had, some double tight end, and there was a combination of QB +1, QB +2, and QB +3. So I think he had that Fields lineup had QB +2, but then he had just Justin Fields here and scored 187. Zay Jones crushed it for sure, and not enough there from Jerome Ford. Now he had a good amount of Brock Purdy, so positive ROI day. I mean, in this Millie Maker, positive ROI day 1,200. In the other Millie Maker, we're talking about winning a millie. So fantastic day overall. But Purdy was 36%. And then it was Browning and it was Fields. So basically all the double-digit exposures nailed that. And then Purdy having a good day at, 36% exposure. And then, kind of like I was saying earlier, I liked getting Clyde Edwards-Helaire because he was cheap and he just allows you to do so much with the lineup. But yeah, these were a lot of the backs that I was on as well. We were on a DFS Army Even with the field on Zach Moss, over on Javonte, over on Mixon. He was over on Rashad White. I liked Bijan a lot. He didn't get the score you wanted, but did pretty good. Got all the volume, just not the tutties. And then Kamara a little bit under, and then a little bit under on Christian McCaffrey there. Now, I think, he was under on DJ Moore and Rashee Rice. You could have been under on Rashee Rice, but you really needed to be over on DJ Moore to win the contest of this size for sure. Playing 150, just under on Debo. So not really enough. Almost even on Drake London. So, nothing really stands out here at wide receiver, obviously. And it had Parker Washington. So a good amount of Parker Washington as well. And then Ingram, 20% Ingram. So if you get a tight end, you have 20% of a 3% owned tight end and score 32 points. That will save your bacon and make up for not having a ton of Njoku, right? So we look at this lineup again. I want to go back here. So 52nd, 491. Placing 52nd really was what kind of saved this lineup here. Now, the next guy we're going to go to, Mock Lovin. Now, he is a DFS pro. He's kind of he's a very polarizing figure in the DFS pro community. Some people are like, oh, he just plays the top optimal, and he doesn't even go to the live finals. He just like sends his lineups in, but he's very profitable. So you play a lot of volume, it's hard to be profitable in DFS. Like, putting a lot of money. I mean, Ricky D, this guy has won so much. 2 weeks ago, last week actually, he was like, thanks to all the big sites for killing DFS with Sims. And he had a screenshot. He put in 220,000 and got like 2,000 back. So it's not easy playing a lot of volume. I don't care what anybody says. Yes, you will have more opportunities if you're playing a lot of volume to hit that perfect combo to win everything, but you will lose way more than you win. Now, he did a QB with his top lineup. It was Purdy, Debo, and there was no bring back. And then he had that secondary stack. Now, keep in mind, he plays fifth in the millie here, so 15,000, so very close. That secondary stack I was talking about, Rashad White and Drake London. So, I like this because when he can get a secondary stack in, that's like one guy's a value and the other guy's not really high price. Like when the stars align and that game goes off, secondary stacks are like a staple of a lot of GPP winning lineups. So you obviously have to nail the one stack, but if you nail the secondary stack and then you just kind of surround it by, good plays like Joe Mixon, Rashee Rice, James Cook, who was like a direct leverage play and had a good matchup actually going against KC. Like, yeah, for sure. Much easier to nail those other plays when you get the primary stack and then one secondary stack. It's just like, you think about it, like hitting legs of a parlay, you now have less that you have to guess right, versus like if you're just doing, 9 legs of a parlay. You think about it with the Purdy Debo stack, that's one, right? Versus like hitting 2 legs of a parlay. That's why stacking is important. So yeah, it was basically that, and then 200 place and 1,600 place. So let's kind of look at Mock Lovin's exposure. So, when I look at this, and obviously it was Purdy, under on Purdy, but double digits on Fields, double digits on Browning and Mayfield. So yeah, nothing really pops out there. It's just kind of one lineup gets you there. But did have Rashad White, did have a lot of Joe Mixon. So, 43% to both of these guys. I thought David Montgomery was a pretty good play. I saw some touts pushing him, and I get it. I loved the James Cook 19%. I loved that because I liked Cook in this spot just as a little bit of. I really thought that more people would be on Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, and I thought that was kind of the style of football that these two teams have played. I thought maybe that was just a way to play this game and just not play Allen or Mahomes, and then it ended up actually being the way to play it. And I loved McKinnon as well here, so I like the value of McKinnon, getting a little bit of James Cook, Kamara 34%. I loved Kamara. It was, very disappointing, very disappointing. I felt like he should have smashed in that spot, specifically with Derek Carr being so injured going into that game. I thought he would just dump off to him like 15 times. Just wasn't there. Even with McCaffrey, and then faded Zach Moss. And, that's where a lot of the day I think went right for him was these two plays right here, James Cook, a little bit of McKinnon, just being even on McCaffrey, and then fading Moss. Now, Rice got a touchdown. Downs, no. Jonathan Mingo, and I thought Jonathan Mingo was a great play, and we were on him. The problem is Bryce Young missed a wide open Jonathan Mingo for a touchdown, and this would have been like a 60-yard touchdown at 3,500. So, it wasn't Mingo's fault. I'll tell you that. And then Drake London. Yeah, you're almost double the field on London. Amon-Ra and Keenan Allen didn't do anything, so they kind of burned you. At least you weren't under on DJ Moore. So, yeah, you definitely didn't want to do that. All right, we're going to look at one guy, and then we are going to hop over to the afternoon slate. We got a 2-game slate going on right now. We got, I think, 3 games on Saturday, probably a 2-game slate with a showdown. We got a Saturday slate next weekend. So I love these 2 to 3 game slates. They're my favorite. Play a lot of USFL, XFL, which is now going to be the UFL, and learn to love these games because you have so much less you have to get right. So we're going to hop into those here in a second. But let's take a look at Giant Squid. So, all the DFS pros I've looked at had a positive ROI day. Giant Squid had a slight loss on the day, but wanted to take a look at kids' lineups because I did see him at one point or another, like pretty high. So it was a Purdy, Debo, George Kittle, no bring back, and then there's that constant Rashad White and Drake London. So. And then Beckham, just as a one-off, 3,800 one-off. So you need these guys. You need these cheap guys. And that's something that really, stands out to me. Like, the cheaper the guy is, the less, you need to force a stack. Like, you could just let those guys run wild in your lineups. For me, I think you want to spread out exposures to the value guys so that you hit on one and you don't have one get a 0 and burn you. But these are the guys that don't need to be stacked and you need to get exposure to them. And by the way, if you guys like this kind of content, let me know. Hit that like button, comment, let us know who you played, how it worked out for you. What was the stack that you played? And by the way, sorry for this being a little later than normal. Fantasy Labs actually, I tried to do this morning and their contest info was just all incorrect. I knew that Hacksaw had won the Millie Maker and they had some other guy there, 205 points. And I was like, that's not right. And then I checked it again a few hours later and it was accurate. So that's why we're doing it later. But he had Mahomes and, Browning, top owned guy. So DFS Army's domination station was pushing him and he was all over it again. Faded Fields though. So, and Purdy. So that's probably where it ended up being a negative ROI day in the Millie Maker. Mahomes didn't have a great day. Russell Wilson, decent day, but not enough fantasy points. A little over on Lamar, but faded Purdy and Fields, and you needed both of those guys. And then, the running backs, I liked the running backs. So I had very similar exposures, to Kamara, to Mixon, to Bijan, Mixon, some Kyron and Javonte. Didn't have Rashad White though. And I had a good amount of Christian McCaffrey and Zach Moss. So was under here, even with Moss. And then this really stood out to me, despite having only 10%. Lamar Jackson had 26%, Odell Beckham. So, and it's probably going to be too late because he's going to be priced up now, and then the field's going to be on him. You got to get on these guys. This is a sharp play. And then, Keenan, the Broncos had a game plan for Keenan Allen. They talked about it in practice, and that ended up being how it went down. It was an Eckler day, not a Keenan Allen day. Drake London. I didn't like Elijah Moore after Amari Cooper cleared concussion protocol, and that was definitely an avoid. So was Zay Jones. Judy, the game plan was for Judy, but he just sucked in the first half. He dropped 2 deep balls that went right through his hands, couldn't drag his toe. That's just how it goes. We talked about Mingo. Yeah, nothing else there. And so that's why it wasn't a positive ROI day. Faded both Debo and DJ Moore. That's how you play the game. You're going to either bank or you're going to get burned. So Otten, Juwan, Pitts, Kelsey. I like Juwan with Taysom Hill out. I felt this was a sharp play. I know Pitts is being pushed. I don't see it. I didn't see it. So. And I likely had a good day. And, not enough people had likely, or you didn't have enough Njoku, that's for sure. And you needed more Cole Kmet. And I had a good amount of, you also needed Allen. Allen was like a really good value. But anyways, let's wrap this up. We're going to go to the afternoon slate. I went YOLO and I locked Drew Lock into the afternoon slate. In the first quarter, I was sitting pretty. I was at one point I was like 40th in this contest. And I was like, man, if Drew Lock has one of those Drew Lock days that he can have, he's thrown for 4 touchdowns and won the Millie Maker before in Denver. And then, he'll also throw 2 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. And so it started out like a great day, and that's how it ended up, was he threw 2 touchdowns and 2 picks. So BG RESETH is a DFS pro. So just want to take a peek at what he did in this contest. Like I said, we're going to have a lot of content coming your way for these 3-game slates, these 4-game slates, these 2-game slates. So you kind of want to know how to attack it. You kind of have to just think about it differently. You have to kind of disregard some of the rules you would for a main slate, like no player against the defense, 2 running backs from the same game. Sometimes you'll have 2 to 3 guys, stacked without the quarterback. So you just kind of have to, negate some of the normal rules you would have. So his top lineup placed second, right? So it was very close. And so 184, so he was a point behind. He did have Purdy and Debo and Ayuk. And then he had Javonte and James Cook. So really did well on the running backs. And, Rashee Rice, Gerald Everett. He had a double tight end here. So, this was a good lineup. And, won 40,000. So good for him. So basically had Javonte and Gerald Everett, secondary stack. James Cook is a one-off. No. James Cook and Rashee Rice. So 2 secondary stacks. But in a 4-game slate, like, these are going to happen more naturally. So, they're not necessarily by design, specifically if you're using an optimizer, which if he's building 150, guarantee A is. So let's take a look at his exposures real quick. So what he had was Josh Allen. And, the reason I like to look at this is specifically for 4-game slates. There is that school of thought where you're just going to maybe lock in a quarterback, or you're going to play 2 quarterbacks at 150. But here you could see he didn't do that for 150. He did Josh Allen with highest exposure and then really played all 8 quarterbacks. So Allen, Herbert, Mahomes, Aiden O'Connell, Drew Lock, Josh Dobbs, Russell Wilson, and Brock Purdy. So ones who, double-digit exposure on Dobbs, Wilson, and Purdy, as well as Mahomes and Josh Allen, with Allen being the highest. Way over on Javonte and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So those were the 2 flag plants at running back. Faded Christian McCaffrey. So I also like with these afternoon slates, kind of playing it different, hedging a little bit than you did the main slate. Like for me, I had a lot of Christian McCaffrey on the, the main slate. So I'm probably going to be under in this spot on Christian McCaffrey. So, maybe he did the same too. I don't know. But yeah, I think you have to be more willing to, on these smaller slates, to fade a player like Christian McCaffrey, who half the field is going to be on it, and it's not a full fade. It's just enough to get that leverage. And then went over on Diggs. I did too. Didn't work out for me. Worked out a lot better for him. 38,000 plus. So, and Allen and Ayuk and Judy. So, really the plan was to be under on McCaffrey and then to jam in the stud wide receivers, Diggs, Allen, Ayuk, and, good amount of Rashee Rice, but under there. A little bit of Jefferson, a little bit of DK. But yeah, mainly Diggs. Mainly Diggs, Ayuk, and Allen. And then obviously tight ends, more in play in the flex, even more in play on these slates. Everett was pretty high owned. I didn't expect that. Kittle and Kelsey over on both of those guys. And then let's see what took it down. And then that'll wrap up this show. So we had Purdy and Debo and Ayuk. So a Purdy double stack. No bring back. Same thing. We had James Cook and Rashee Rice, Javonte Williams, and Gerald Everett. So really, I feel like this was the exact same lineup as BGRESETH, BGRE Seth, except Cortland Sutton in the flex. And who did he have? I think he had Hawkinson. Yep. So 10 points. Everything else was exactly the same. So we're talking 10 points from Hawkinson, and Cortland Sutton got 15 points. So that is exactly the difference right there. Specifically on these 4-game slates, that's pretty much it. That's all it takes. So thank you for joining me. That's going to do it for this week. Again, if you like this kind of content, hit that like button. Really appreciate it. And make sure you subscribe to the channel so you never miss an episode. Specifically when we go live for all the shows, the showdown shows, tournament tactics, and definitely all the content we have coming your way on these 2, 3, 4, and smaller game slates. So that's going to wrap it up for this week. We will see you all next week. Later.